Hello and welcome to episode 283 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And in full transparency, we're recording this show early because I'm headed to St. Andrews, and I'll report on St. Andrews when I get back after Labor Day.
Yeah.
But let's start talking about I want to finish my Little League World Series. Curacao, who lost early on in the tournament, has played 7 games and won the international division, beating Chinese Taipei 1-0. Very well played game. Both teams had great pitching, great defense. So Curacao will play, as I predicted, Hawaii winning the U.S. And as Hawaii has more home runs than all the other Little League teams combined, and they swing for home run almost every time up. You know, it depends on what Curacao can do with their pitching. Their pitching's really good. So I think it'll be a really good game, but I think Hawaii will probably win.
Okay.
But the Curacao team is a really fun team to watch. They made some great defensive plays yesterday in that 1-0 game.
There you
go. College football started yesterday, and following suit, Nebraska lost again by lost by single digits again.
And a really bad call by the coach.
Yeah, the onside kick was ended up 11 points.
Yeah, you went up 28-17 and you go for an onside kick. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it's a shame. I was hoping, they got Whipple there now. I was hoping they turned around, but I don't know. This looks like it could be the beginning of the end here for the coach.
Yeah, it seems like he doesn't really want to be the coach either. Maybe he's just doing, sabotaging his job on the way out. Giving them lots of reasons to fire him.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
Tom Brady is
continue to lose.
Yeah. Tom Brady's back.
Continues to win.
Yeah. Tom Brady back.
Tom Brady back.
Said
looking like the Dorian Gray picture must be really hideous in the attic.
Very much so.
I mean, I've never seen him look younger or leaner ever.
No. And I wonder if some of the lean, obviously, you treat your body differently as you get older, and he's obviously on his crazy Tom Brady, the TB12 system. But he's also been doing a lot more TV. And as someone that has been on TV and in movies a number of times, you do, even with modern cameras and modern lighting and you just look bigger on screen. So I wonder if that's had any effect on his physical appearance or psyche. But he said, don't worry about the 11 days off. I have a lot of shit to deal with. I'm 45.
Yeah.
And then he denied rumors that he was going to the Raiders, as Jay Glazer and Dana White, for some reason, decided he had worked out a deal for Tom Brady to go to the Raiders. Which seems like an odd Dana White,
No, speaking of which, though, when Bill Belichick was out there, they gave him a belt. And it was the happiest I've ever seen Belichick.
Yeah,
you see a picture of that?
Yeah, that, and then the AFC, when he's on doing the football talk, and he's talking about Ed Reed and Lawrence Taylor, he's incredibly happy then too.
But him wearing that belt, he looked like the happiest man in the world, which I've never seen. So that was kind of cool.
What did you think about the... I know we don't talk a lot of golf, and I certainly don't talk very much golf. You're about to go golf. But
yes.
Now the backlash and the pro Phil Mickelson talk that's been happening, where it's say what you want about guys that go out and try to make as much money as they can golfing, but the PGA still deals with the businesses and the people that own the PGA deal with that same country all the time. So it's a little bit hypocritical to to call out these golfers for doing what they're trying just trying to make a living. It seems like a lot of people are calling Tiger and Rory and all these guys hypocrites for the way that they, the people Tiger's involved with business-wise, and they deal with the Middle East, and they deal with, Saudi Arabia just as much as everybody else does. And it's like now all of a sudden it's, no one's defending Saudi Arabia and their politics, but you can't, bash him on one end for dealing directly with him when half the companies that support you deal with him too. And our U.S. government deals with them all the time. So it's like,
It's interesting. I don't know how it's going to evolve.
Well, it seems like the live guys are getting a little
relationship with the PGA Tour commissioner, so I'm biased. So I can't. I don't even want to comment because I'm obviously biased.
It just seems like I mean, Stephen A. went off on Tiger Woods this week. A number of ESPN guys went off on Tiger and the PGA. It seems like there's at least some backlash for some of the hypocritical things that they're doing, is what I would say. But when Stephen A. goes after
doing
Tiger,
a lot of things that Greg Norman did to start Live, and they're trying to address it by doing, increasing the money and doing everything else and guaranteeing things and no cut tournaments.
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot to be said about, the approach they've taken and how they've, where they're trying to compete with Live. So we'll have to see.
yeah.
I mean, I just,
I just didn't expect to see Stephen A. and ESPN in particular going that hard against the PGA and Tiger Woods.
Yeah, but how much golf does ESPN cover? Very little. They don't have any events.
True.
I mean, it's open season for them.
But it seems like with most things that involve finances, like, everybody's wrong for the most part. Everybody's doing whatever they can to make as much money, and they don't really care what happens in the wake. Whether you're Tiger Woods, PGA, Live Tour, Phil Mickelson, they're all the same. And I think that was part of Stephen's point. Yeah.
You could argue that. Well, let's get into our predictions. I'm excited about these two divisions because I think they're really, really interesting.
Well, let's start in the NFC North, and we'll save our Steelers Sunday for dessert.
Okay. I'm going to start with the Bears in the 4th spot, but I think they'll be better.
Yeah. Did you watch any of the preseason game from last night?
I saw that Fields looked pretty good. He had 3 touchdown passes, I think.
Yeah, he had 3 touchdowns. He looked really good. As people have pointed out, though, whereas you look at what the Jets have done with Zach Wilson, they've signed offensive linemen, they've drafted running backs, they've drafted receivers. They are putting everything around him to help him succeed. And he may fail because he doesn't look great. And people are talking about Joe Flacco once again being the best quarterback on that team. But it seems like the Bears are almost doing the opposite. They're doing almost nothing to help Justin Fields. And it's kind of sad because I really like Justin Fields as a player. But I also have them in 4th place because I just feel like, they're not. I mean, it's weird because usually once you have your franchise quarterback, you want to do everything you can to support him and build up around him. And it just doesn't feel like they've done that.
Well, I think there's a depth of wide receivers that are going to be on the waiver wire when teams cut down.
Yeah.
And I think the Bears will be able to pick up some weapons for them. But I think they'll be better than they were. They're still, to me, a team in flux and, new coaching staff again. And it just is what it is. The Bears are kind of like, in rebuild mode all the time.
Yeah, it's very sad because that's Chicago Bears of all teams,
My 3 team is the Lions.
Mine as well.
But I think the Lions could challenge for the 2 spot.
It's your favorite coach.
I've been watching Hard Knocks. I love Dan Campbell. I love the way his coaching staff is, including a couple former Steelers, Anton Randall L. and Deuce Staley.
Yeah.
I like the way they're performing. It's going to be a gradual climb. I think they'll be more competitive next year, but I think they're going to be much better than they were last year. And I think they could, depending what the Vikings do, they could push.
Yeah. And I think
the Vikings just have too much firepower. And I'm not sold on Jared Goff. I'm not sold on DeAndre Swift. So,
how much of Deuce Staley berating him on Hard Knocks is you're not sold on DeAndre Swift?
I had him on my fantasy team last year. I'm not sold on him for that reason.
That makes sense. But again, unlike the Bears, I mean, they don't have a franchise quarterback. Like you already mentioned, Goff, and
Yeah.
The Rams gave away
I like Dan Campbell puts himself out there and just really is striving. And I mean, he's definitely, you could tell he's an NFL player. I mean, he's into the practices. It's a fun thing to watch. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it.
Yeah, and the Lions, I mean,
have them third.
I'm on St. Brown. You got Jameson Williams hopefully coming back mid-season when he was considered the best wide receiver in the draft. They've done a nice job building that offensive lineup. The defense is kind of frisky, and obviously with all the talent they have on the coaching staff, like they're probably a year or two away. But with
they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
They're going to scare people.
With all the quarterbacks coming out this year, that's like their final piece as far as their rebuild. It's getting the non-Jared Goff guy in there.
And remember, they're playing a 4th place schedule.
They are. And it's nice to see because, I mean, the reason Stafford left is that, going back to Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, like this franchise always seems to be disappointing, I guess. I don't really know what the word is.
I think that's a good word.
But it seems like maybe they're moving in a good direction where they're a little more competitive.
All right, so obviously you both have the Vikings second.
We do not.
Oh, okay.
I have the Packers second.
So go ahead and talk about that.
At some point, and we saw this a little bit with Brady in New England, like if you keep losing weapons, eventually it becomes harder to make your offense go. And I know they still have Aaron Jones, and I know they still have Dillon as the backup running back, who's also very good. A.J. Dillon, right? Mm-hmm. And they have a pretty solid offensive line, although they lost one or two guys from last year. But you have three rookies, Alan Lazard, and, I just feel like they're, less on offense. And I just really like what the Vikings have done. I love Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen coming back, Dalvin Cook healthy, a good offensive line. And I know the caveat, obviously, because I'm kind of discussing both teams at the same time, is on the one hand you have Aaron Rodgers, arguably one of the most talented quarterbacks ever, and I'm putting my money on Kirk Cousins, one of the most average quarterbacks ever.
But a good fantasy quarterback.
And I think, they're going to be running the Rams offense. And the Rams offense is very effective. And if they stay healthy, which obviously with Thielen and Dalvin Cook, those are giant question marks. But I think this might be a good year for Minnesota. Minnesota Vikings. That's who I'm picking to win the division.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pick Green Bay first, Minnesota second, for the reason you talked about. I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers over Kirk Cousins.
Which is,
I just don't think Aaron Rodgers will let that team drop. And obviously they've spent a lot of money on Aaron Rodgers, and unfortunately not on a lot of other players.
No.
And we'll have to see how that all plays out. Another team I look to be very active on the waiver wire looking for some other receivers.
Well, they did draft Christian Watson in the high second round, and they drafted the guy that everybody loves in camp that I can't remember his name in the fourth round, who Aaron Rodgers even and people have pointed out Aaron Rodgers doesn't go out of his way to talk up rookie wide receivers, but he's really like this guy. And I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now. I should have written that down when I thought we were talking about that. But, and he said, I think is it Lazard is the guy that was this mainstay from last year, right?
Right. And Randall, don't forget the infamous Randall Cobb.
And Randall Cobb, the ageless wonder. After Brady is the ageless wonder. And, when Nicolas Cage, he came dressed, when Aaron Rodgers came to camp dressed like Nicolas Cage, including the mullet from Con Air, I guess that tells you he's serious about the season, right?
Yeah.
Wife beater, greasy flowing mullet. That's right out of Con Air. It's everything you could ask for in a quarterback, I suppose.
We'll have to see. That's going to be, but like I said, it's going to be a very entertaining division.
Yeah, and that's one like
Justin Fields, the improvement of the Lions, the offensive power of the Vikings, and then Aaron Rodgers. It's a very, very interesting division.
Yes, and I know I'm going against football gambling rules easily, which is the number one rule is probably bet on the best quarterback and the best coach, which in that division is probably the Packers duo, and yet I'm putting them second.
Yeah. Now, the AFC North.
Yes. The Super Bowl runner-up Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns and all their hoopla, and then obviously the podcast favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So, I'm going to pick the Ravens to win the division.
Okay.
Over the Bengals.
Are we starting at the top then on this one?
We'll start at the top because I think the bottom is going to be the saddest, so we'll keep that for last.
I've got the Bengals winning the division, but the Ravens. I think both the Bengals and the Ravens are making the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I just think the Bengals aren't going to sneak up on anybody this year.
No, they are not. But they've also improved quite a bit.
Tough schedule.
They are.
And the Ravens have to be healthier than they were last year.
One would hope.
That team was decimated all last year.
Yeah, it would be nearly impossible. I think they were one of the, historically, they were one of the most injured teams in NFL history.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm giving them the nod. I think, they haven't signed Lamar yet.
Which is a worry. It's a weird one, right?
It is weird. But, he's his own agent. So, if he's got a big insurance policy. So, I would not be surprised if he doesn't get what he wants, that he plays without it, plays under the frame, doesn't play, and he plays to become a free agent, and then we'll see.
Now,
but the only thing about Lamar, he's got to show me he can pass more consistently when teams play to take away his run.
It's true. Now, if you're the Ravens, though, you look at the deal Mahomes signed, you look at the deal Watson signed, you look at the deal Kyler Murray signed. 2 years down the road, there's going to be a giant cap spike. Quarterback is the most important position. So if you are not meeting his demands, which I think is just slightly more money than Kyler Murray, which I think he's proven he deserves, because he can stay on the field much longer than Kyler Murray and he doesn't fade down the stretch. What is your hesitation if you're the Baltimore Ravens? Is it Lamar's play, or is it?
I guess where they are is the percentage of guaranteed money.
Yeah. So that means you have doubts of him being, there's still residual doubts if you're the Ravens about Lamar's ability.
Or you're afraid it's going to disrupt your whole scheme of the way you've done things.
Yeah.
By giving somebody that much guaranteed money. It's hard to say. I mean, I think they definitely want him as their quarterback. I don't see any way that they don't. It's just that certain teams have him figured out and certain teams don't. And he excels against the teams that don't. And he struggles against the teams that do.
To be fair, he has improved statistically as a passer every year.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's only going into his fourth year right now.
Right.
And he's already been a league MVP. Has a high winning percentage. I think the highest winning percentage in the NFL of all starting quarterbacks right now for 3-year periods. I mean, at some point, I would pay him. But like I said, I think the Bengals, they added to the offensive line. Jamar Chase in his second year. I view Burrow as having sort of that Brady instinct where I don't think Burrow teams, and Aaron Rodgers to be fair, even though I just picked against him, I don't think Burrow teams are ever going to be complacent.
No, I don't either.
And especially, I know the Super Bowl hangover, but I think for a young team, I think that changes a little bit.
The Ravens could win. And my prediction for the Ravens is they might be one game better than the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
most. But I mean, there's going to be 2 teams fighting it out at the top.
Yes. And before we talk about, where do you have our favorite team, Dan?
I'm going to put them at third.
I have them at third as well. So let's talk about the fourth place team first. The mess that is the Cleveland Browns.
The Browns are the Browns. I don't think Jacoby Brissett is the answer.
I think it's Josh Dobbs. You saw him last night. He looked fantastic. Former Steeler. Did you know he was playing for him?
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah. I think the Deshaun Watson distraction is going to be there all year. I think when they come back and they're in Houston, I think the fans are going to be brutal. And I don't think this is something as a team you're going to rally behind.
And I think the ownership is kind of questionable.
I think the ownership is very questionable.
They're creating some bad scenarios as well.
And you lost, in the last year you lost Odell. You lost Jarvis Landry. I know you added Amari Cooper. So, and it looks like you paid David Njoku to be a bigger part of your offense. But I just think, it's been a very distracting offseason for them. I think they have a lot of new players, new quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett. I think it's going to be a rough year for the Browns.
The only thing in their favor is they don't have the expectations that they had last year going into the season.
It's true. And I'm hoping there's
I think they also have a survival instinct that they're just looking to survive the season.
Yeah.
And look to 2023.
And clearly, based on Deshaun Watson's contract, that was their mindset going into the contract, is where they're only paying him $1 million this year. So,
yeah.
But he didn't get suspended indefinitely. Didn't even get suspended for a year. Only got the 12 games, so he will be back this year. But I think karmically, hopefully,
missing 11 games this year and all of last year.
Yeah. And looking very rusty in the preseason.
How's he going to be?
Yeah. I mean, I could see a scenario where, depending on where you are, I guess you want to get him out there and, dip his feet wet no matter what. But I was like, is there a way you just shut him down for the year if you're the Browns? But clearly not, because you fought so hard to bring him back. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our Steelers. We're picking third.
Picking third, which, given we're a very homer podcast, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I think we picked him fourth last year, didn't we?
I think we might have, yeah.
I mean, no matter who the quarterback is, it's an improvement over the Ben Roethlisberger of 2021 and 2020.
Yes.
There's no question about that. So that's an improvement. But I wish we had the offensive line of 2020 rather than the offensive line we have now.
It's hard to imagine because they've had a bad offensive line going back to 2019 at this point. And they drafted players, not first and second round players, but third and fourth round players. They signed 2 free agents this year. And the offensive line looks horrendous, is the best word I can think of them right now. Like, if you replaced 4 or 5 of these offensive linemen, I know there's only 5 offensive linemen start, but with cast off from other teams after cut day, I don't know if you would be worse with the way they performed thus far.
No, and if they don't play well today, I would look the fact that they will pick up some, that they'll definitely be scouring the waiver wire for at least 1 or 2 people.
Yeah. And I love Pat Freiermuth, but when you look at it, they could have had Creed Humphrey in the middle of that line.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It's hard to criticize the Freiermuth pick now.
Yeah.
I criticized it then, but it's hard to criticize it now because he is very good.
He is very good.
But Creed Humphrey would have made a big difference.
Yeah. And it's, he seemed like the perfect, because, the Steelers went from, Webster, Dawson, you go through the list of all, Pouncey, all these great centers. And they could have had Creed Humphrey, and they chose, weapons instead. But speaking of the weapons, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Pickens are your starting weapons, and that's a really nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue from top to bottom, they're probably in the top 10 of weapons, and they, from if you're counting all 3 positions and they're weighted equally, you could argue they have as good of a wide receiver, tight end, running back combo as almost any team in the league, I think. And that's I don't even mean that as a homeristic sort of way. I think legitimately, right? Yeah,
I would say so.
And I will also say, I've watched all the preseason games. I bought the NFL Plus to watch on my iPad. And while I don't know if he's ever going to be, the elite quarterback, I'm seeing a lot of why they drafted Kenny Pickett in the 2 games that I've watched him play. He seems very poised, which you would expect as an older guy coming out of college, 4-year starter. But, he doesn't get rattled. He moves well in the pocket, keeps his feet moving. And he does something that I haven't seen the other 2 quarterbacks do consistently, which is make anticipatory throws. Any guy in the NFL that's playing quarterback has an NFL arm strong enough to throw to wide open guys. But I've seen Pickett do ball placement things that I haven't seen from quarterbacks in a while, where he's putting the ball in a position where only the receiver can catch it, and you're throwing the guy open as opposed to throwing to the open guy. And that's really nice to see. The Pittsburgh Steelers have the most expensive defense in the NFL. They have an elite player between Hayward, Watt, and Fitzpatrick at all 3 levels of the defense. Tyson Alualu is back. The guy they got from the Bengals, who was injured but then is now there, it looks like an absolute steal. Miles Jack looks good. Kazee and Edwards at safety. The defense looks solid, right?
With the exception of the other outside linebacker spot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the other inside linebacker spot.
But as people have pointed out, you play more dime. You throw another one of those safeties on the field. Don't even worry about the other inside linebacker. Although, like my man Vince Williams, I really like Mark Robinson.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that they need to, hopefully he plays well on special teams, because I feel like he's somebody I want to find a way to keep on my roster, because I don't think he's going to stay on somebody's practice squad.
Agree.
Like, I think a guy like Dan Campbell, speaking of a team we talked about earlier, a young Detroit team that has a lot of holes to fill, I think they would look at a prospect with his athleticism and his limited experience, but as good as he's looked, he's like a heat-seeking missile. Like, he seems to know how to get to the ball and where the ball is going to go. Obviously, there's going to be a lot, your first year playing was linebacker is going to be tough, especially in the NFL. But he's a guy I'd like to see stay on the team.
Yeah, for sure. I hope he makes the squad.
And if Devin Bush is as bad as I keep hearing he's been, as much as it sucks, because not only was he a top 10 pick,
you traded up to get
you
him.
traded up to get him. But if he's, that sunk cost fallacy, like if he's not a guy you envision for the future, and if he's not somebody you think can contribute very well this year, as weird as it is to see them keep 7th rounder Mark Robinson over Devin Bush, I don't mind doing it. At some point, you got to cut ties. Like, you made the mistake. Don't keep paying for the same mistake over and over again.
Agreed.
And then, I also would like to see Vaughn, the rookie out of USC, the undrafted kid. I'd like to see him be the 6th wide receiver on this team.
Well, it's a good two quarterbacks. If they trade Rudolph, and the rumor is that he could go to the Rams or the 49ers as backup.
Yeah.
And both would be, he would be very serviceable in both of those organizations. And maybe the Rams would be a great spot to see if they can develop them and make them better. Either of those have great coaches, so it'd be fun to see what happens.
And if you're the Steelers,
and then maybe and if you're playing if you trade him for a conditional pick, he probably, I don't know. I've not been blown away by Trey Lance so far.
No.
So we'll have to see.
But it's also one of those situations if you're the Steelers, given your offensive line situation, another pick in next year's draft, because Mason Rudolph is a free agent at the end of this season. And given the way that, it's clearly been made between the offseason moves and the offseason talk, that I wouldn't see him coming back to Pittsburgh in any way. So you might as well get a pick and then throw it at an offensive lineman in next year's draft and just do the, we're drafting 7 offensive linemen this year and just hoping we get a couple that stick.
Yeah, so I like Mason. I hope something good happens for him, and I hope the Steelers get a conditional pick for him.
Yeah. And again, I did not like the pick at the time, but I do, like I said, there's, if I said I would envision Pickens as the number 1 pick and Pickett as the number 2 pick, and kicking with that in my mind, I like the pick now. So.
Okay.
And I also would like to see him on the field sooner rather than later. I think he's been the best guy in camp. I think he's
absolutely would.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather go with him right now.
Yeah. And again,
a lot of the pundits are saying that he'll be the starter by the 4th game. Why?
Yeah.
You drafted him. You picked him in the first round, the highest rated, the only quarterback to go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Play him.
And you drafted, like I said, he's a 5th-year senior. He's not a young kid. He's playing in the same stadium he played his college football in. And I don't think, I don't want to talk well about certain guys and, not knowing the circumstances, but I'm not sure that him getting banged around is going to ruin his career. I just, I think certain guys are just going to love being a starter playing football and they're just going to work through it. And I think some of the guys that don't work out just don't work out. And you can say, well, what if, and all those kinds of things. But
yeah, I agree.
I think Pickett's a tough kid. And if you put him out there and let him go, I think whether he's sacked 10 times a game or not isn't really going to affect his stock moving forward. Outside of injury, obviously. But that's
sure
whatever, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk about my fantasy team now.
Go right ahead.
So I had the 3rd pick in the draft, and I picked Austin Eckler. I talked to Jason beforehand. I was looking at Justin Jefferson. I was looking at. I could have taken McCaffrey because they passed on McCaffrey, and I just thought the injury risk is just too big. I don't want to take him.
He's scary. He's missed, I think, double-digit games the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and he was the number 2 rated guy on all the things, and Eckler was 4.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm going to take Eckler. And everything I read said, if Thomas was gone, this was the best pick as a running back. And I love the Chargers offense, and I was hoping I'd get more Chargers on my team, but I didn't. So my running backs are Eckler and Travis Etienne.
And I'm a big Etienne fan. I'm in a dynasty league, and I have been throwing a bunch of different players at the person that owns Travis Etienne, and they are not budging. So, because I feel like you have 2 running backs that are going to contribute quite a bit this year, which is what you want.
I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah.
I have 3 quarterbacks because I took Jameis Winston with my very last pick because I think you and I have talked. I think he's going to have a good year.
Yeah.
So I took Kyler Murray with my first pick because I wanted a runner, and I really wasn't comfortable taking Lamar. I could have Lamar or Kyler Murray. I took Kyler Murray. And then I took Tom Brady later on as my backup, and I feel pretty good about having Tom Brady as my backup.
I think so.
I took the top tight end. I took Mark Andrews.
Which
I like that pick.
Great tight end.
My receivers, I got Michael Thomas from New Orleans because I fell asleep at the switch and it auto-drafted for me.
But again, as people have pointed out, he was one of the best receivers in football when he was healthy before. And if he's happy and healthy again in this offense, like he could be one of those, because you got him late, right?
Yeah, I did. So I took him. I took Chase Claypool because it's a contract year, and I think he'll have a big year.
And I like him as the big slot, which it seems like where they're playing him, which I think is a really good fit for him. Working over the middle, yeah.
I took Chris Olave.
He was looked very good.
And I just think that, again, I took the Saints defense. I took the Bengals kicker. So I really like my team.
Yeah. And if anybody hasn't drafted yet, as exciting as it is to get a really high receiver, like, I think you'll find there's just so many receivers that it,
And speaking of which, my depth of my other backup receivers, Julio Jones.
Yeah. Because, Cooper.
Only because of Tom Brady.
Yeah, because I think Cooper Kupp last year, before he had the greatest fantasy wide receiver year was like the 31st wide receiver taken on average. So,
and this year he went number 2 in my draft.
Right. So as easy it is to say Jefferson or Jamar Chase, like you just never know. It might end up being like Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco. All of a sudden has the break. But there are a ton of receivers.
I did take Allen Robinson too,
and I love that pick.
I think he could have a huge year.
I think so.
And which is why I wouldn't have taken. That's why I wouldn't have taken Kupp if he would have been there for me. Because I would have taken that. My only regret is that I really wanted Justin Herbert, and he went the pick before me in whatever round we were in. And then so there was a real run on quarterbacks, and so I decided I was going to take my quarterback, so I had him in the queue, and then I thought maybe, but he went the pick before me.
Well, now every week you can root for Justin Herbert to throw the ball to the 1 yard line and Austin Eckler to run it in. So
that's what I can root for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about playing fantasy, so it's going to be fun. Do you have any food or entertainment?
What's that?
Do you have any food or entertainment to go with our conversation today?
Well, no food, but I have entertainment. I have 2.
Okay.
One is I just finished the 2nd season of Only Murders in the Building, the Steve Martin, Selena Gomez show. There's going to be a 3rd season, which they set up at the end of season 2. But I would say, each season is, it does build upon character stuff, but each story is completed each season. So you can sort of hop in. Really enjoyable show. It wasn't as... What's nice about the first season's a very tight, small story where it's like, these are the 3 people accused of being the murderer. They get together. We watch them solve the case. Where this was a much, we're bringing in other characters. We're separating our trio a lot and bringing in other people. But overall, still very good, really entertaining. Then yesterday, because we had all these Fandango gift cards that we couldn't figure out any other way to spend other than going to a movie theater, we went to a movie theater.
Okay, what'd you say?
We saw Nope, the Jordan Peele film.
And?
Really entertaining. He's a fantastic director. He did Get Out, he did Us, he's done a few other things. From a technical filmmaking standpoint and a creative standpoint, he's really, really good. I don't want to say anything about the movie other than it's definitely worth it. It's very entertaining. You'll enjoy it. Because I feel like if I try to talk about it at all, I might give something away. But I would say for you, there is a lot of homage to sort of Once Upon a Time in the West, Sergio Leone, some other stuff in there too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw that one in the previews. It looked interesting.
Yeah. And because he's Jordan Peele, he also teaches you a slight history lesson along the way as well, which is always nice. You know. Yeah. But I don't think I had any other entertainment moments.
We've been watching Confronting the Serial Killer on, I think it's on Epix.
Okay.
It's about Samuel Little. And it's really well done.
Which is Samuel Little the guy that killed like 91 women?
Something like that, yeah. It's more than Bundy, Dahmer, and whoever else combined.
Yeah, I don't know if I watched, because Maria is the true crime person in our house, and I don't know if we watched that one, but we watched something on him and with a lot of interviews with him, and he's crazy.
Yeah, he's frightening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm uncomfortable watching on TV.
Yeah, he's got that level of, oh my God.
Give me food. You know, I rewatched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Excellent
which
movie.
is still one of my all-time favorite movies. And I just enjoy that movie. It's just so well done.
Well, speaking of well done with Brad Pitt, we also watched Lost City, which is on Amazon Prime right now. Have you seen that one?
Mm-hmm. I've not seen it. It looks interesting.
Sandra Bullock, Brad Pitt, Channing Tatum. She's a romance writer. She gets kidnapped by Daniel Radcliffe to find this lost. She writes about treasures and travel, and it's a cute, entertaining. Like, you'll have a good time for the hour and 45 minutes you're watching it, and it's free on it.
Romancing the Stone.
Very much so.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
When I looked at it, I thought, this is Romancing the Stone. Yeah. In 30 years later.
It's Romancing the Stone. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But it's, it's very well shot, charming. It's, it's free on Amazon Prime right now if you want to watch it. Okay. So, and I feel like that might be the service that most people inadvertently have. If you shop
I'm actually hoping for some great airline movies on the way to Scotland tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So we were going to go see Where the Crawdads Sing, and I'm hoping that will be on my choices tonight. I don't know if it will or not.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll give a cautionary one, too, and then we'll end our podcast. But I watched Gone in the Night, which is a new thriller with Winona Ryder and Dermot Mulroney. It's fitting this trend of like 4 or 5 movies I've watched in the last year that are very close to being really good, and then just sort of fumble the ball towards the end. And that's what this one did. But it'll keep you entertained for the hour and a half that you're watching, or 82 minutes. So.
Well, I'll be playing St. Andrews on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I will be posting pictures on Twitter and Facebook, and I will. I'm actually going to do my next Sport Business Journal column on bucket lists, because this was a bucket list item for me, and they liked the idea of writing about a bucket list. And I actually wrote a bucket list in 1972 with 93 items, of which, as of right now, I've completed 74.
That's impressive.
And after this trip, I will have completed 76. Because going to Scotland was one, and then playing St. Andrews was another one. So
I assume eating haggis isn't on there?
The time I did the bucket list, I didn't play golf.
Huh.
So on my bucket list was learn to play golf.
Very nice. And eat haggis?
No, I'm not going to eat haggis.
Okay.
But I am going to go, and there's a bakery over there that they talk about during the Open, when it's on TV.
Yeah.
And they have fudge donuts. And I am going to make sure I have a fudge donut.
It sounds like 2 great things, donuts and fudge. You can't really go wrong.
Can't be wrong.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. So I will report on my golf in Scotland and Ireland, the next live show we do, which will be opening NFL Sunday.
Yeah.
But the NFL would have opened on Thursday night, but it will be opening Sunday.
Correct. All right, we'll let you go to your plane. And
all right. Have a good one, Jay.